The poll's good news for Richard Blumenthal. He continues to have a comfortable lead over Linda McMahon. In the Senate race, he leads by 20 points, 55 to 35%, but the poll also contains some good news for Linda McMahon because she is gaining on Richard Blumenthal. She's cut down his lead. Prior to the Vietnam controversy, Blumenthal led McMahon by 33 points. A week after the controversy, that lead was down to 25 points. Now it's down to 20 points. The other piece of good news for McMahon is that she has reversed her negative favorability rating. So now slightly more people have a positive opinion of her than have a negative opinion. And certainly there's plenty of time to go. There's 5 months until the election, and McMahon has lots of money.
Is there any way to gauge by this what's making the difference, why people have less of a negative opinion about her?
I think I'm really clear on that. One thing that she has improved on was her leadership qualities. We looked again at the same personal attributes that we looked at last time, and we did see a rise in the percentage of people who say that she is a strong leader.
But you made a correlation between her increased numbers and the Vietnam controversy. That's just a coincidence, or did you track that?
I'm not making it a correlation between the two. I'm using sort of the Vietnam controversy sort of as
a bellwether of some kind.
As a point in time. Now, clearly the Vietnam controversy hurt Blumenthal's numbers, and we found that in our first poll afterwards. Right. The 1 week out afterwards poll, we saw him drop in his favorability. We saw the matchup. But when we looked again at Blumenthal's numbers, now it's 3 weeks later, his numbers haven't moved.
Right. So she's gaining.
She's doing better.
She's closing on some people.
Right. She's doing better in terms of her favorability. His numbers have stabilized. They have not gotten any worse.
His number is the same again, roughly the same against Simmons. So what do we draw from that? Is that a solid number for Blumenthal, or should we not overreach there? You know, the 55. I mean, he's
right. Well, the way I would look at it is we did match up Blumenthal against the 3 Republicans, and there seems to be a generic vote there for the Republican candidate of anywhere between about 29 and 35%.
You say that the Vietnam controversy hasn't really, or it has made an impact. However, didn't 61% of the voters say that? Right. Would that have been better if 80 or obviously 90%? So it is an issue, but not so much.
It did initially. My point is that we saw an impact in the prior poll on Blumenthal's numbers. We saw it in terms of his honesty and trustworthiness came down significantly in the last poll, and his favorability rating came down in the last poll. This poll, we see a leveling off. We see his numbers continuing to be very high. For example, he's still the most popular elected official in Connecticut. He's got a 73% job approval rating, so his numbers are still very strong.
So the good news for him is stabilizing?
Yes.
But she is beginning to get some people to decide, undecideds to come her way.
Right. She is getting some people. She's also, converting some people as well in terms of favorability. Some of her negatives have come down a little bit. Her positive have increased. And in terms of the matchup, yes, she's getting. She's increased slightly in the matchup.
But in a 3-way primary, she doesn't get more than 50%. She doesn't get 50%, right, of the Republicans.
Right.
Now, there's a larger margin of error in the primary matchups.
Right.
So what should we make of Rob Simmons actually picking up 6 points since ending his campaign?
Yeah. I'm not sure, Mark.
Okay. What about statistically?
The 6 points change. The margin of error, I think, was about 6. Was it 4 on the Republican side? I think it was a little higher on the Republican side.
Right.
So, there was slight movement towards Simmons, but as we know, he's suspended his campaign, but he is keeping his name on the ballot.
What about the outsider-insider question? I mean, people preferred an experienced candidate. How does that read into the Senate race?
That was a change, because we did ask that question before, the one about whether people wanted a Senate candidate who was an outsider or someone who had many years of political experience. Last time when we asked that question, it was a tie. This time we're finding that more people are saying they want someone with experience, which, is unusual given the political environment that we're in right now, when there's so much talk about the public wanting outsiders. But in this Senate race, I think part of it might be because they're thinking about the specific candidates, and so when we ask it, they might be having Blumenthal and McMahon on their mind in that question.
You mean if there was a candidate that they didn't like, they'd want an outsider, but if it's a candidate they like an insider?
Yes, and actually I'm glad you brought that up about McMahon, because I do think that her particular kind of outsider experience is something that Connecticut voters don't care for. That is professional wrestling. We found that by 2-to-1 margin, Connecticut voters say they have an unfavorable opinion of professional wrestling, and by a 2-to-1 margin, they say her experience as being the CEO of WWE makes them less likely to vote for her.
But you hadn't asked that before?
One other time, and we found similar findings the other time we asked it as well.
In terms of